So the next guy we have up is another Duartite. Am I saying that right? Duartian? Another amazing designer from Duarte Designs who doesn't look at all like his Facebook picture. Steve Wishman, who's going to talk about form over function. I'm really interested in seeing how he's going to justify this. Steve Wishman.
Just get 1 second to grab a stage prop that I brought here. Hopefully that'll eat some of the time out of this presentation. So the title of my presentation is Form Follows Function, actually. I changed it at the last minute. Sorry about that. For my first photo, I chose this picture from Burning Man in 2006. This was an art installation called Uchronia, and these guys from Belgium brought some $200,000 worth of scrap wood from a Canadian lumberyard and just started building randomly without any plan. So I think that's a great example of what happens when form doesn't follow function, as opposed to the chair here, whose form absolutely had to follow function. In order for it to function as a chair, it needed to meet some requirements, right? It needed to be a certain height off the ground, maybe a place to lean your back. So the shape of the chair naturally followed because of what it had to do. 57 Chevy, on the other hand, there's a bit of a mix going on here. There's intentional design apparent from the styling cues. It's got a very 50s feel to it, but it's still at its root a car. You know, it's got 4 wheels on the ground, an engine, a place to sit. It still had to follow the design requirements. If you erase all of the form completely from that, this is what you'd end up with. This thing was basically built to do one thing and one thing well, and that's actually really apparent when you look at the form here. They sold the rest of the form to advertisers to do with whatever they wanted to, but you know, their part of the design was handled. So really, between these two vehicles, neither one is more attractive. A lot of people find the shape on the right to be just as attractive as the shape on the left. And I think there's a human instinct that kicks in there, because when you see a shape that's been designed to do something and its guts are on the outside like that, your brain starts working and you can see how it works. And you start to piece things together about your reality. You know, bicycle, if you've ever ridden one, you can ride any of them. You know how to steer, you know where to put your feet, where to sit. And so this becomes a visual language for you to navigate your reality comfortably. We've been doing this for a really long time. Since the beginning of written history, we've been creating a visual language so we can navigate our reality. And actually, written history is a visual language, so it's a pretty literal statement. Yeah, so over the years, this visual library we put together, the icons and the shapes and the outlines, they start to take on character. And they start to develop personalities. And there's stories embedded in there. And everybody has a story about their grandfather in the rocking chair. These objects develop reputations. And once you have a reputation, it's pretty hard to break that or change it. Take the case of the Geiger Counter, for instance. This was a device invented to detect radiation. You're probably all familiar with the sound, but in case you're not. Originally, a Geiger counter had to sound this way because that's the limitations of the technology at the time. That's pretty much an amplification of the sound of the components working. Modern Geiger counters, like the one on the right, are more like your cell phone. Solid-state circuitry, they're really high-tech, and probably about half the cost. But the point is, you could program it to have any ringtone in the world you wanted, but instead of doing that, people stick with the original Geiger counter sound because that's just what you've come to expect. That's the sound of radiation being detected. There's a reason it's uncomfortable to us to change, because this is the landscape we're dealing with today, and nothing is recognizable. I took all these pictures in one shot at Target a few days ago, and honestly right now I couldn't tell you what half of those devices are just by looking at them. We're sort of living in a generation of nondescript black boxes now. If I wanted to share some pictures with you guys, I could use 3 of these devices to do so. And if I want to share an audio file, I could probably use the same devices to do so. And worse still is that all these devices claim to work together. Sometimes well, sometimes they don't work so well. And it's really confusing for people who have a visual language already established that they are used to dealing with when trying to make their way around the world and get things done. Yes. So, moving on, this is our new visual language. The comfort zone that we're used to dealing with in terms of shapes has moved to the interface design. Now, when you look at an object, you need to know what it does. If it has a play button, a stop button, a rewind button, fast forward, then you can probably figure out in a few minutes that it's, or less, that it's either an audio player or a video player. And you know, we have to get used to this new system of symbols to get by. These are pretty much our new cave paintings that we have to deal with. When we tell our stories, this is how we do so. The shopping cart has become our bows and arrows. Everybody's familiar with the reception signal icon. Super familiar when it comes to gamers. Everybody's got a lot of nostalgia built around this shape. But now, because all of the devices are claiming these new features, you know, they detect your motion, they detect gestures. There's a lot of emphasis put into new and more intuitive ways to use your things. So I think, personally, steampunk as a style has arisen out of the need for people to sort of turn back the hands of time and have something intuitive visually. People want to walk up on something and see what it does, and they want to take interest in the shape of the thing. I think it's really disconcerting. It's kind of a letdown to us to have to deal with this black box generation. So I think Jake Von Slat said it best on his website that steampunk's the intersection of technology and romance. And he built this lamp for his girlfriend, and so that inspired me, and I read the how-to and realized how easy it is to modify brass lamps. So I built this lamp for my girlfriend. And she's sitting right over there. And as I was putting it together, I noticed something really interesting about it. I used actually 3 different brass lamps, one from my mom's house, one I found at an antique store, one at a yard sale, and then this shade came from an antique store. And I realized you can't read by this lamp. You can't, it really does nothing. It's just sort of all form. Even a nightlight, which is pretty much all you can call it, is all form. So it's meant to be just appreciated and looked at, and I think that's the heart of steampunk, and I think that's why it was so liberating for me to make this thing. So this is my next project. Hopefully that thing turns out as well as it looks on screen, and I thank you very much.